The city never truly sleeps. Beneath the neon glow and the rhythmic clatter of subway wheels, lives intersect in fleeting moments. Some forgettable, others life-changing. Tonight, in the dimly lit train car, Evelyn didn't expect anything extraordinary. She was just another tired soul on her way home, an elderly woman in a gray coat, clutching her bag with quiet determination. But fate had other plans. As the train lurched forward, a man stepped in. His eyes, sharp and calculating, swept across the carriage before locking onto her. He moved with practiced ease, choosing a seat just a few feet away. A smirk tugged at his lips as he tilted his head toward her. "Nice bag," he muttered, his voice low but deliberate. Evelyn stiffened. She knew this tone, casual but laced with something darker. Her grip on the leather strap tightened. "Must be worth more than you make in a year," the man continued, leaning in slightly. "Is it even real?" Silence. Evelyn kept her gaze lowered, focusing on the scuffed floor of the train. Ignoring him was safer. Always was. But he wasn't looking for silence. He wanted a reaction. "Tell me," he said louder now, "how does a woman like you get something like that? Theft? Or was it a charity gift?" Evelyn exhaled slowly. Then, without looking up, she said, "I don't owe you an explanation." Wrong answer. The smirk disappeared. He straightened, stepping closer, his breath laced with alcohol. "An old woman like you, carrying a bag like that? That doesn't make sense. Why don't you hand it over to someone who actually knows its value?" His fingers brushed the strap. Evelyn's reaction was instant. She yanked it back, voice sharp. "Leave me alone." The train fell silent. Eyes flickered toward them. Some passengers gripped their phones, recording, but none moved. Just another moment in the city. Just another victim standing alone. The man chuckled, as if amused by her defiance. But then, something shifted. His expression darkened. He wasn't playing anymore. "You're not letting go?" His fingers flexed. "Fine. I can be more persuasive." And just as he reached again, a sound. Not from the train, not from the passengers. A slow, deliberate footstep. Someone rising. A shadow moved from the back of the carriage, stepping forward. Not hurried, not hesitant. Just calm, assured. The flickering overhead light caught the man's face as he emerged from the dimness. Keanu Reeves. His gaze locked onto the would-be thief. Unreadable, unwavering. Arms crossed, voice quiet but firm. "I think you're making a mistake." The man hesitated. His grip loosened. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, but arrogance won out. "You don't know what's going on here," he sneered. "This has nothing to do with you." Keanu took a step closer. "You're right," he said simply. "But someone has to do something." The air in the subway car shifted. The moment stretched, tension thick. Phones, once held discreetly, were now raised in full view. This wasn't just a mugging anymore. This was something else entirely. And then, the man laughed. But this time, there was something else behind it. A warning. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he muttered. And just like that, the night took a turn no one saw coming. For a moment, the subway car was silent, the rhythmic clatter of the train on the tracks, the only sound filling the space. The passengers watched, their screens glowing as they recorded. Keanu's expression remained unreadable, his stance relaxed, but intentional. The thief's lips curled into a smirk as he glanced at the cameras. "Oh, I see. You think because you're Keanu Reeves, you're some kind of hero." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Man, this ain't Hollywood. You should sit down before you get hurt." Keanu didn't move. He simply tilted his head slightly, eyes locked onto the man's. "Maybe," Keanu said, voice calm. "But I don't like seeing people bullied." Something about the way he said it made the thief's fingers twitch. His bravado wavered for half a second, but then he gritted his teeth, stepping closer. "You want to be a tough guy, huh?" His hand moved toward his waistband, a subtle but unmistakable motion. Some passengers gasped. A woman in the back seat pulled her child closer. Even Evelyn, who had faced her share of hardships in life, felt a chill run down her spine. Keanu saw it too. His eyes flickered to the man's hand, reading him, calculating. The tension in the air was suffocating. And then, the train lurched. A sudden jolt sent everyone rocking forward. The thief stumbled slightly, cursing under his breath. But Keanu? He barely moved, his stance unwavering. It was the smallest shift in the dynamic, but it changed everything. The thief gritted his teeth. "You're really not going to back off, huh?" Keanu exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. No, the thief laughed again. But it was different this time. Forced, nervous. His fingers twitched again, and he took a half step back, eyes darting toward the exit. He wasn't used to someone standing up to him, and certainly not someone so eerily calm. Evelyn clutched her bag tighter. The passengers leaned in, anticipation thick in the air. Then, just as it seemed the thief was about to back off, he lunged, a blur of motion. His hand shot forward, aiming to snatch the bag from Evelyn's grip, but he never made it. In an instant, Keanu moved, fast, precise. His hand intercepted the thief's wrist mid-motion, twisting it just enough to make him falter. Not enough to break, just enough to control. A sharp yelp of surprise escaped the man's lips. Keanu leaned in slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "Walk away." For a moment, the thief was frozen. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His mind raced, and then something shifted in his eyes. Not fear, something darker. "You really don't know who I am," the thief muttered, his voice quieter now. "You think this is just some random robbery?" Keanu's grip loosened slightly, enough for the man to pull away. "You just got yourself involved in something way bigger than you," the thief muttered, rubbing his wrist. Then, without another word, he took a step back, then another, before finally retreating toward the subway doors. The train slowed as the next station approached. Passengers let out the breath they'd been holding. The tension seemed to ease, until Evelyn noticed something. The thief wasn't leaving empty-handed. Somehow, in the scuffle, he had slipped something out of her bag, a small, black envelope. And the moment Evelyn saw it missing, her face paled. Because it wasn't just any envelope. It was something that wasn't supposed to be in the wrong hands. Something that could change everything. And Keanu saw the fear in her eyes. "Ma'am," he said, his voice quieter now. "What was in that envelope?" Evelyn swallowed hard. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "We need to stop him." Keanu's gaze sharpened. He didn't know what was in that envelope, but Evelyn's reaction told him everything. This wasn't just about a simple robbery anymore. The subway doors hissed open. The thief glanced back, his smirk returning as he stepped onto the platform. He tapped the envelope against his palm, a silent taunt. Then, in one swift motion, he disappeared into the crowd. Evelyn gripped Keanu's arm, her fingers trembling. "We can't let him get away." Keanu didn't hesitate. He turned toward the doors, only to feel a rough yank on his sleeve. "Sir, I wouldn't get involved if I were you," a man muttered under his breath. He was sitting near the exit, a worn-out business suit hanging loosely over his frame. His eyes darted between Keanu and the platform. "That guy. He's not just some thief. You don't want this trouble." Keanu studied him for a beat. The man's hands were shaking. "What do you know?" Keanu asked. The businessman swallowed, glancing at the doors as if he expected someone to be watching. Then, his voice barely above a whisper, he said, "He's connected." The doors started to slide shut. Keanu made his decision. In one smooth motion, he slipped through the closing gap, landing on the platform just as the subway sped away behind him. The air was thick with the scent of rain and concrete. The station buzzed with movement, commuters rushing in every direction, conversations blending into an indistinct hum. But Keanu only had one focus: The thief. He spotted him just ahead, weaving through the crowd with ease. The envelope was tucked into his pocket now, his hands stuffed into his hoodie as if nothing had happened. But Keanu could see it. The slight tension in his shoulders, the way his head tilted just enough to check behind him. He knew he was being followed. Keanu kept his pace steady, blending in with the moving crowd. He wasn't just chasing. He was hunting. The thief quickened his steps. Keanu matched him. Then, the thief veered sharply to the right, slipping through a narrow gap between two kiosks. He thought he could lose him. Big mistake. Keanu moved fast, rounding the corner just in time to see the thief dart down a flight of stairs leading to a dimly lit service exit. Keanu followed. The air was different here. Heavier, quieter. The sounds of the city above faded, replaced by the distant dripping of water from a leaky pipe. The passage was lined with flickering overhead lights, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. The thief was standing at the far end, just beneath the final light. But he wasn't alone. Two men flanked him, one tall and lean, the other built like a tank. Their suits were crisp, their expressions unreadable, and the moment Keanu stepped into the light, they turned to him. The thief grinned, tapping the envelope against his fingers again. "I told you," he said smoothly. "You have no idea what you just walked into." Keanu exhaled slowly. Then he smiled. "Try me." The air in the underground passage thickened, heavy with unspoken tension. The two men beside the thief didn't move, but their eyes locked onto Keanu, like predators sizing up their prey. The taller one cracked his knuckles, while the bigger man simply rolled his shoulders, as if already preparing for what was about to come. Keanu, however, remained still, calm. He had been in situations like this before, not in movies, not in carefully choreographed fight scenes, but in real life. And real life had no retakes. The thief smirked, twirling the envelope between his fingers. "You must really think you're some kind of hero, huh?" He took a slow step forward. "Following me down here like you're in one of your action flicks." Keanu's voice was steady. "I don't need to be a hero." He took a step closer. "Just need that envelope." The thief laughed. "You don't even know what's in it." Keanu's gaze flicked toward the paper clutched between his fingers. "I don't need to, but I know she does." For the first time, the thief's smirk faltered. Keanu took another step forward, his posture unwavering. "And if she's afraid of you having it, that means it belongs in the right hands." The taller goon scoffed. "You talk too much." Then, without warning, he lunged. Keanu reacted instantly. He sidestepped just as the fist swung past his head, grabbing the attacker's arm and using his own momentum against him. A swift twist, a shift in weight. Before the man could even process it, he was flipped over and sent crashing onto the concrete floor. The larger man didn't hesitate. He barreled toward Keanu like a freight train, fists clenched. Keanu barely had time to dodge as the punch came swinging, his shoulder just barely missing the force that could have broken bone. Instead of retreating, Keanu moved in, closing the distance fast. A quick, precise elbow strike to the ribs, then another. The big man grunted, staggering back, but it wasn't enough to drop him. Keanu knew he needed to be faster. The thief, watching his men struggle, cursed under his breath. "Are you kidding me? It's one guy!" The bigger man roared, charging again. Keanu ducked. A perfectly timed maneuver sent the man stumbling past him, straight into the wall. The impact shook the narrow passage. Before he could recover, Keanu grabbed the back of his collar and yanked, using the man's own size against him. With a powerful shove, the big guy hit the ground hard. Silence. The only sound left was the thief's shallow breathing. Keanu turned to him. The smirk was gone. The arrogance had melted away, replaced with something else. Pure, unfiltered panic. "You still have something that doesn't belong to you," Keanu said, his voice even. The thief took a step back. His hands trembled as he clutched the envelope tighter. Then, In a final act of desperation, he tore it open. Keanu's eyes narrowed. A single piece of paper slipped from the envelope, fluttering to the ground between them. The thief's breath hitched. No, no, this can't be right. Keanu didn't take his eyes off him. He bent down, picking up the paper. His gaze flicked over the words, the handwriting worn but legible. And in that moment, he understood. It wasn't money. It wasn't blackmail. It was a letter. A letter addressed to Evelyn. From someone who wasn't supposed to be alive. The thief stumbled back, shaking his head. I was told it was worth millions. His voice cracked. They lied to me. Keanu exhaled, folding the paper carefully before slipping it into his pocket. Looks like you weren't the only one who made a mistake tonight. The thief's hands trembled. He was no longer the predator. He was the prey. And Keanu was done playing games. He took a step forward. You're going to walk out of here, he said, and you're going to forget this ever happened. The thief swallowed hard, nodding frantically. He didn't need to be told twice. Without another word, he turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness. Keanu watched until he was gone. Then, he exhaled, glancing down at the letter in his pocket. Evelyn was waiting, and she deserved to know the truth.